I think this picture sums it up.
Hey everybody, I'm Jason.
And I'm Pete.
And this is the Lost Legions podcast. And today we are here to talk to you about heresy events. So, you want to go to a heresy event?
Do you?
Do you want to go to a
Oh
heresy
boy,
event?
do I! This is what I live for.
Have you ever been to a heresy event, Pete?
No, what's a heresy event? Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, basically what we want to talk to you guys about today is, and this is targeted at people who might not go to as many events as, let's say me and Pete, who we go to any event that we can, kind of like what you need to bring, is your army good enough, and the do's and don'ts, right? So let's start off. What the hell do you need to bring to a heresy event, Pete?
Right, yeah, exactly. So you need to bring yourself. You need to bring an army. You need to bring an army up to, this is going to sound a bit harsh maybe, but not it's not meant to be, but up to the standard of what the event pack has asked you to do, right? So I feel like, number one, people never read event packs, which is fine, but you really should.
Not that our event organizer here is bitter.
Not in the slightest.
I'm not gonna lie. I have turned to Pete occasionally and been like, "What's the mission?" He's like, "Didn't you read the pack?" I'm like, "No, dude."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is fine. But yeah, what I mean by keeping in key with the event is like it'll ask you to be, fully painted. It'll give you sometimes an example of what they mean by that. And don't get me wrong, it's fine having things not finished to exactly the standard you might have wanted them finished to. But having having things like unpainted or things missing or stuff like that, then that's not really acceptable in my opinion. In my humble opinion.
I mean, there's a huge difference between like, hi, my model is not quite finished, I'm still working on it, but it's all colored and painted, and like, hi, my model is primered.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like,
right, yeah.
Like one of them you can get away with, right?
Yeah.
Like I've basically put in the base colors and the highlights.
Yeah.
And the other one is like, I'm just a primed model.
Mm-hmm.
And like, or just an all base colored model, right? Like it's definitely in the heresy scene, I would say, more than other scenes. And maybe this will change, but like, hopefully not, is that like everyone tries to paint to a standard that at least is tabletop quality to begin with. And this is not to say, like, I have seen some badly full painted models, and you know what, I am totally cool with it, right? Because people get out there and they paint their models to their best ability, and they're painted and they've tried, and I hold zero judgment on that. Like, that's fine. Right? Like, it's when you see just like the obviously, like, I have put no effort into this and I'm at an event, that you're like,
oh, these are my yellow ultramarines because
that's even worse,
because I can't be bothered or don't have the time or the extra funds or whatever the reason is. It's fine to buy and paint an Ultramarines army. That's fine. Just run them as the Imperial Fists like they are actually the models of, right? So things like that as well is clear. So painted with the intent of what they actually are to be. Like, you don't need to get to rivet counting here, but within reasons, I guess. And fully painted is perfect.
The intent is, if you can see them on the table and at least they're finished and they're what you think they are.
Oh, nice word
right?
there. Like, so, nice white scars. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. What else are you going to need? You're going to need your books.
Yes.
Lugging around those books is not nice. So probably get PDF formats if you can do these days, but, make sure they're downloaded as well. That's another thing, like hosting events beforehand. People will be like, I've got no signal here. And I can't get on the Wi-Fi or whatever the reason is, I can't download your pack. Like, okay, well, maybe you should have downloaded it beforehand or whatever the reason is. So always download things. It just makes things easier if it's a downloadable pack, and have it saved on your phone, or have the pack with you and the rules book as well. Sorry, it's supposed to be the point of the original point I was trying to make there is have the rule books available for you for sure. What else do you think?
And this is one thing that I have actually been guilty of multiple times and accidentally. Make sure you have your dice and make sure you have your tape measure.
And your blast markers.
I thought, and your blast markers.
Yeah.
I thought they were in the bag.
Yeah.
How many times have it been like, I thought they were in the bag?
Yeah.
In the last time I went to Warhammer World, thought I had a tape measure in the bag.
Nope.
No tape measure in the bag. Luckily, I was at Warhammer World, so I just bought a tape measure. So yeah, I mean, check those before you go. It sounds basic, but yeah. Also, again, with that, go through your box, make sure that all the units that are in your list are in there. It's never happened to me, but I have seen it happen to people.
To me last weekend playing
there you go.
games at James's house. I forgot an entire Spartan. Right? So like the whole tank just wasn't there. Like, oh. So yeah. So in summary, key points so far: bring your books, bring your army painted and intentfully for what it's supposed to be, and bring your models. Right? Make sure you got your stuff and your gaming peripherals as well. Glue, glue's always wise to bring because things
Battlefield
break
repair juice.
Yeah, it happens, and it can actually Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, you don't have to bring glue, but if you do have glue, you are the guy with glue, and people will be happy to see.
It's a great way to get free beers, right?
Yeah,
maybe. I can't say I've ever given someone a beer for let me use their glue.
Just hand.
Maybe I need to. Yeah, I'll just. I'll see you for turn 8.
You got some glue? I'll churn your butter. So family friendly, out the window.
Yeah, gone. I don't think it ever was. You can lose a bit of immersion as well. Like some people be like, that guy's broken off at the waist, so I'll fix him after the event, and it's just a pair of legs on a base now. Don't get me wrong, if there is no glue, it's obviously fine, but here, do you want to use my glue? No, that's cool, I'll sort that later on. Okay, that's fine as well, I guess, but I don't know, just it takes
Meanwhile, Pete's like,
it takes 5 seconds, god damn it. Sort out.
It's fine, man.
Yeah.
It's fine, man. The guy goes for a drink, Pete glues his model back together.
We've got anything else you think is important to bring towards an event from an equipment standpoint?
From equipment standpoint, I think that's good. I think we can move into the next topic, and I think this one is interesting. Is your army good enough? And this is kind of a loaded question. So, what do you think, Pete? Is your army good enough? Some people have fear that their army is not going to compete, or they don't care.
There's a balancing act here, I think, and also there is no right answer for this because people's personalities are very different. However, I think there's 2 of you playing the game. That if you can remember that and remember the reason why you're there to play the game in the first place, then that is what's clear, right? So remember, the majority of Heresy events, the ones that we've ran as 30k Frontier, have been as narrative as we can possibly push them. They are not about stomping your opponent, right? There will be some events.
There is no winner.
No, it's just
award,
right? The majority of the majority of Heresy events are just loyalists versus traitors, right? Rather than who's the top player. So try and take yourself out of that mind frame of I have to kick ass. But also, if you write a terrible list that doesn't function, and your opponent just beats you hands down with an average list or a non-super competitive list, then that's not actually fun for the person who's winning either, right? So like I spoke about last episode with me and Will's a good friend, but he kicked my ass by turn 2, and his list was very optimized. And Will's known for bringing good lists, very good lists, and he's a good player. But I'm sure he won't mind me saying, that was the worst game I played that weekend. Not even from the fact that I got beaten, from just an enjoyment level, right? It's not about being beaten, it's about how much you're enjoying. And I don't think he had any fun either. This is the key thing. I don't think he was felt a bit guilty, a bit so yeah, you don't want to swing too far one way. So you want to be competitive and be able to put up a fight, but don't just follow the cheese. I think that's sort of the key thing, right? Don't take all of the cheese.
You don't need the Fury of the Ancients list necessarily, but do keep an eye.
Such a difficult topic, isn't it?
Yes, I would keep. I mean, and I think Pete and I also kind of fall in the middle on this, right? Because Pete and I want to both have very competitive games, but we don't necessarily want to take the most optimized list to stomp you. Because I think both of us like narrative. Both of us kind of like our forces to have themes, and again, I think we fall in the middle, but we both want to win and we both want to have competitive games.
Yeah.
So, that's that out of the way. If you just want to take a completely fluffy list and you don't care about winning and you just want to roll some dice and have fun, don't feel like that's bad. I mean, again, like Pete said, it might not be fun if you run across an optimized list and that guy is ready to play. But a lot of times heresy events are narrative, right? So you can talk to people about stuff like that and maybe get paired with someone else. Like, this is something else to talk about, right? If you really don't care and you just want to take your like Care Bears in Care-a-Lot list, then do it. Have fun. Look for other narrative players. Challenge people, because a lot of times they have challenge systems in events. Challenge people that are not bringing these. Grudge people who are not bringing these really optimized lists and just play a more casual game.
But I guess if you're new, this is obviously aimed at newer players or players that are, so you're not going to know really what optimized looks like. You're not going to have any experience of that yet. So it's hard to say that, I guess. But retracting my statement slightly about like, oh, hello, kitty.
He just jumped in my lap. He has opinions.
Oh dear. Actually, yeah, I want to hear his thoughts. If you bring nothing to deal with a dreadnought and your opponent turns up with 3 dreadnoughts, it's probably going to be that player with the dreadnoughts that wins. If you have nothing to deal with high tough vehicles and your opponent turns up with a couple of those, it's probably going to be that player that wins. If you turn up with nothing to deal with lots of infantry, or like a large infantry squads, and your opponent has nothing but large infantry squads, that they're probably going to win, right? So I think having a bit of an all-comer list is probably the best thing to aim for. If you can have a number of units that do a number of things, that's going to give you, because the fun things, isn't it, at an event is when you've having a really good chat with your opponent and it goes to the last turn and it's like a coin toss as to what the outcome is going to be. They are the best games always. 100%. And they often come from having well-rounded lists, I would argue, more than anything else, right? Things that can do a bit of everything.
This is not to say you can't take that themed list that you want to take, but be aware, like Pete said,
it might not interact the way you think it's going to. Yeah.
Right. And you might run into games where like you just can't deal as much. Like I fought Ian's all like Terminator list, right? And he just did not have much shooting, and my list was mainly shooting. So like it was hard for him to interact with me.
Yeah.
In the first couple turns until he got to me. And like Pete said, is your list good enough? It might not be, but what you want to aim for is a list that can interact with everything and you can have fun the entire time.
Yeah.
And so you shoot for a well-rounded list. And if you don't have a well-rounded list, be prepared mentally for having those games where you might not be having as much fun, where you might be stomped, and try to take that, run with it, and have a laugh, right? Yeah. Because that's hard. No one likes to get stomped.
Yeah.
And no one likes to be there to administer the removal of their models.
No.
And that is no fun. I've had those games. You've had those games.
It's going to happen. But don't get knocked down by it, right, as well. That's Actually, it's the worst thing you could be is go to your first event and you get ruffle stomped within half an hour to an hour, and that's your first experience of a game at an event. Like, what the hell? Like, just try and sweep it under the rug. If it happens 3 or 4 out of the 5 games or whatever, then maybe it's more of a reflection on your list. But if it happens once, then don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, be prepared for everything in your list, right? Like all comers lists might not excel at anything, but you'll be able to put up a fight. And as you get to know the game, you'll be able to refine your list better to sort of play where you like more, right? In the assault phase, in the shooting phase, like movement phase, whatever. You'll get a better idea for it, and you'll be able to refine, paint, and bring new units.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's jump on to maybe the do's and don'ts. And we've kind of touched on a few of these.
Yeah. Do you want to hit us off with the do's?
So, I mean, I guess like
kind of touched on it a little bit, but
we've kind of been touching on this, but I think, definitely, come be there on time. Like that is kind of like a no-brainer. But again, like there's plenty of times where like you're waiting for people to show up. It's happened at a couple events, especially like it's happened at Pete's events. I remember we don't know where people are.
Yeah.
There's not enough people to start. So be there on time, have all your stuff that we've talked about, and be ready to play. I think you're also there a lot of times. If you're an experienced player, you're there, you see your friends, you're talking. When the event organizer kind of like gets everyone together, be sure to like quiet down and listen to them. Listen to the rules of the mission. And this is my own personal experience. If you haven't read the event pack, read the event pack and the mission right
Yeah,
then,
I can't stress that enough. Like,
nothing is worse than when you're halfway through playing around and you're like, how do I score? What do I do? Because a lot of times we'll have these bespoke missions.
Yeah.
So before you start, be sure to read the pack and sit down and talk to your opponent.
yeah, it's actually really important, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And at this time, you can use the same time to talk about the terrain. And again, like I've had plenty of games where like this has been the suggested terrain from whatever, but I've talked it through with my opponent and we're like, yeah, this is the way we're going to play it. So don't be afraid to talk to your opponent. Talk to them about the terrain. You don't want any surprises in the middle of the game. Oh, I thought this was a 4+ save. Oh, it's a 5+ save, right? Like talk to them about it in the beginning. If you talk to them about it up front, there will be no surprises and it will be an easier game experience for you. Let's talk about the don'ts.
The don'ts, yeah, okay. So the don'ts in particular. Well, here's some. I was just bringing up some photos of whilst you were rambling then of previous events and stuff. But yeah, so yeah,
the don'ts became Ian right there. Like,
yeah, that's mad. Yeah, so yeah, there's a few different don'ts, I guess. I just want to touch on one more do actually, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Do discuss things with your opponent first, rather than running to an EO. Like the events and organizers are there to govern your games and make sure an outcome is happen if you guys can't agree. But more often than not, you can agree, or you can probably put it down to like a, on a 1, 2, or 3, it's in your favor. This thing on a 4, 5, 6, it's in my favor. Especially with the new edition at the moment, right? There's going to be a few things that you're going to be checking the rule books a lot. There's going to be a few things that you're just going to get wrong. That's all okay. Really not an issue. You just want to make sure that you're, keeping the speed of the game going at a correct pace. Like it's not, you don't want to learn bad habits, right? Either. But go ahead.
I addendum to this. My roll and see if it matters rule, because a lot of times you're like, well, on a 4, 5, or 6, if I hit, I don't know what this weapon does. I have to look it up, and then I'll be like, instead of stopping, I'll be like, we'll just see if you hit, and then we can look it up later.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, but if I roll a 6, this happens. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Are you sure? I'm not sure. Yeah, but I'm sure. Okay, cool. I'll tell you what. Roll that 6 first.
And
okay,
then
you
we'll
roll
look
4.
it up.
Cool. We'll check out at the end of the game. Yeah.
So many times it hasn't mattered, and like it hasn't come up. Like, so I'm just roll and see if it matters, and then if you don't know, it keeps the game going.
Yeah. So in terms of the don'ts of Heresy then, like I think this picture sums it up. So don't table your opponent by turn 2. Don't deploy librarians within rapier teams. Don't run Iron Hands in general. It's fine. Don't run Graviton Shredder squads. I'm joking. I love Will.
Bitter. Not that Pete is bitter at all. This man you see ahead of you is one of the most lovely men I have ever played Heresy with.
Bill the Destroyer.
But he's a beast. An absolute beast.
Hey, that's a nicer photo of the man. But yeah, anyway, so this is what happens. So this is the do's and don'ts is don't let this guy beat you turn 2, and then don't let him take you for a victory drink on the beach afterwards. But yeah, anyhow. So yeah, no serious don'ts. I think it's kind of like a flip reverse of everything we've said for the do's, right? What's the worst thing that you can think someone could do at an event?
Throw a model against a wall.
Yeah,
I've seen people freak out. Okay. Basically,
yeah, launching dice across the room and stuff. Yeah,
I mean, this is just in general. Oh wait, actually, I will say the worst thing that you can do is don't get wasted.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's really annoying to play against somebody who's wasted. One time I've gotten wasted, and I realized that at the time. I apologized. I stopped drinking. I sobered up, finished the game, and I was okay for the next game, right? But like, it happens. You're with your buddies. You're drinking. Everyone's at the bar. Like, you know, like, but be aware. Like, if
kind
you
of
get
comes
too
back
drunk,
to one of the original points of like your there's two of you to play the game, right?
Yes.
So hold that at the forefront. But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, getting too wasted is an issue. And if you are like a lot of the guys there will drink a lot. It's part wrongly or rightly, it's part of the culture with a lot of the events that we seem to go to anyway.
At least in England, let's put a caveat here.
It's a big thing. Like schedule. Most event organisers will do grudge games and schedule your last game of the first day or whatever when you're most likely to be wasted with a friend who's also likely to be wasted.
Yeah.
Me and Ian, we've talked about Ian quite a bit. We quite in fact, that's why me and Will scheduled game 2 on Saturday at the event we talked about last episode. We scheduled it for game 2 on the Saturday because we both knew we would be drinking and we can both just have a chat with each other and play a game, and that's cool. That's what we want from it. So
apparently one of you was drinking a lot more than the other and got tabled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey ho. Anyway, moving on.
The other thing is keep it calm, keep it cool. Things are not going to go your way sometimes. It's frustrating. No one likes it. You don't have to be happy the entire time, but be aware. Like Pete said, you're playing with 2 people. If things aren't going your way and you are administering the removal of your models, try to be pleasant about it. Try to be, calm and cool, and try to have a good time. If you can have a laugh and a smile and laugh about it while it's happening, then good. If you do get to a point where you feel like you're reaching a breaking point, concede. Walk away. Don't throw a fit. It's fine, right? It's okay if you get to the point where you feel like you're gonna break. Then say, "I'm sorry. Congratulations, you win. Congratulations. I need a break," right? And walk away. That's fine. Like these are the but no one wants to sit there and make you sad. Like no one wants to deal with somebody who's super upset. Like I've had to deal with super upset people before. It's a dice game. Sometimes you just roll hot. Sometimes the other person just rolls all ones. Like, but we all want to be there to have fun. Everybody wants to have a laugh and a smile and win and have a good time doing it. And, that's what everybody's there for. So, don't have a bad time.
No, absolutely. I think, just make sure that, as you sort of really said, just make sure that you're taking something positive from it. Concede, go and walk around, look at the other armies on display, or if your opponent in your opinion has a nice painted force, like make the conversation about that, talk to them about their painting tips and try and take something positive from the game, right? Is basically, I think, what we're summarizing.
Yeah, I mean, especially like when I'm losing and there is no hope, like a lot of times I'll just turn it into a chat and talk to them while they're playing and like have a talk with them, right? Because like at that point, like what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like
what's in it for you anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're here to have fun, like so I'll help cheer them on, like at that point, right? Like because otherwise I'm just gonna get irritated and upset, and then that's not fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Don't not turn up to the event. Don't drop out without saying.
Yeah.
The amount of running events previously, there's nothing worse than when someone just doesn't turn up and doesn't tell you they're not coming. Like legitimately, that's probably happened a couple times where people have genuinely just completely forgot that they're supposed to be doing anything that weekend. Right? They book these things sometimes half a year in advance, and whatever. And that's fine. That happens, but just to not turn up, there's no reason for that other than you've genuinely forgotten. That's not going to be the reason every time, right?
But I've seen people not show up like the second day of a 2-day event, and and not say anything, and that can be kind of frustrating for the TO because everyone's waiting around. If they do know in advance that you're dropping out, they can either get a ringer or pair. They're not waiting for you. Like, so yeah, if you are going to drop out or you need to drop out for some reason, just be sure to tell the TO.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe do bring an alternative list. Might be another do. Like just think here if it's possible. If your army can be taken another way, maybe a second list might be fun.
Yeah, and
'Cause-
some events do that where you can play
Yeah.
take multiple lists.
I can't remember the
So-
last event I went to where I had to submit a list. Do you remember? I used to do
No.
it for mine, like the first. It's just trust people that they're going to stick to the points, right?
Well, okay, so actually, I think that this kind of, I want to dovetail this into our next kind of 2 points that we're talking about in events is narrative and competitive events. And I think we can talk about these together because I think in competitive events, this is where you're going to want to submit your list. This is where your list is set in iron. This is where like things are going to matter a lot more. And you get a lot less competitive events in Heresy. Heresy innately has a narrative built into it where you have loyalist versus traitor. Competitive events, the couple competitive events I've been to have not acknowledged that, and they've just been like, this guy plays this guy, and I haven't found them as much fun. But you still might end up in an event like that.
Yeah.
I was at one of Warhammer World, right? Like, so like this can happen, and you know, this could be your jam. You could be a competitive player. This could be what you want to play. You could want to see what Legion is most optimal. Could be what butters your bread. That's fine. That's very different than narrative events. And Pete can take us through a little bit what narrative events more are. Yeah,
and also just touching on what Jay's saying about competitive ones is don't get salty and upset that you've had your ass kicked at a competitive event, right? Like they'll be like, I can't believe that guy's running this. Like if it is literally a tournament, then put your Warhound Titan on a what was it? On the Sky Shields landing pad for an invuln.
Yeah. I hate this guy to that day.
Yeah, whoever that guy is.
I'm sure he was a lovely person. It was
a narrative event.
The rage that I felt at that moment. I was like, what?
For those that don't know, in a previous edition, if you were like on terrain, you had cover. So this Warhound has his like big toe covered by a Sky Shield landing pad. So it's like 5 up invuln or 4 up invuln, whatever it was. Yeah, crazy. It just stood on it. T-shirts were made of it. It became a meme. It was great. In terms of narrative events, right? I think we've kind of touched on the do's to a degree, but yeah, you want to run a narrative. Be prepared for people to ask you about your character and like what's the story of your army. Like, so what are you guys? Because let's say on one of my events, like the Recallion Wars, people are like, why are you guys at Akkar then? Why are you guys at this planet? What are they doing here? And people, ask you that question. You want to be able to give some sort of answer, maybe, right? That might be important to you. It might not be. That's fine. But it's nice when people do start talking that way. It's nice if at least your character sort of has a personality behind them. Because if your opponent's one does as well, and they end up fighting with each other, there's nothing like better, is it? Like people like saying, and my guy, blah blah blah, is now going to do this, and like it's really fun. I can't think of much else really to say.
Also, in narrative events, you can expect less smashy list. I mean, but that's not to say that there won't be smashy lists, especially now, I think with 2.0 and a lot of new people coming into the hobby, right? There will be the sort of like kind of conventions that they will before are going to be redefined. So, but in general, narrative events have less smashy lists, and some narrative events are basic narrative events where you just have traitor versus loyalist, and they play book missions. Some narrative events, like a lot of stuff Pete ran, are super narrative, where like it's a specific thing is happening. This is the 3 games. These are the 3 missions that I've made bespoke. Make your own character. This will be brought up later in the game, right? Like so. There are degrees of narrative events, and I think like what Pete said, a lot of hyper narrative events are really fun, and they can be a lot of like you have a lot of investment in it. And I kind of think this is sort of like where, because Heresy is so narrative and there's a lot of narrative events, this is where like people are like paying all your models, bring all your stuff. Like this is in general, it's a very good scene, and like I would recommend people look for narrative events and 100%. Go to them. And go ahead.
I was gonna say it's great. Like we've got players from Akkar and from Quarter 7 event 2-3 years ago now, like coming back to the Forever Winter event later on this year, carrying on the story of their same characters, right? Like going, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to bring back this guy. Like they haven't touched that army in maybe a year or two, whatever, and like I have to bring this guy back because this was the guy that was on that planet and is now on a neighboring planet. You know, to fight the next. You know, that's awesome. And as the organizer of that, that feels really good and rewarding. It's nice to build that thing, right? So yeah, that's I think that's pretty much it. Do expect a narrative event to throw into the wind a little bit what meta is, because in my opinion, the mission should be challenging and detailed and different enough that things don't necessarily work quite the way you want them to in your list for like a standard game, but equally it shouldn't be too much over the top where what even is the game anymore, right? So
the last thing I want to touch on with narrative events is actually not to do with the events themselves, but with hobby and how narrative events can help you drive your hobby. And with me, like I get ready for narrative events and like this kind of drives me to do stuff, but I've even made an entire unit themed on an event. So I played against Pete in a car. His Raven Guard were jungle themed. My Alpha Legion, I made a unit that was like undercoated with Alpha Legion. Then I put Crackle Medium on them and then painted them as Raven Guard and then chipped it away. And the whole theme was because I played Pete. I believe you beat me at that point. I don't remember what, but like this unit was supposed to be Pete's Raven Guard from that event. Like that was the Alpha Legion that infiltrated them. And we ran this kind of shtick for years, right? But this all came from events we were playing in. And I think a lot of times, you know, if you have these great events happen in games, you could put them into your hobby. You bring them back into the same series of events. People will love it. It'll be really fun. You know, it's something to kind of take inspiration from. Yeah. So I just kind of want to point that out. Like that's a lot of where I get my hobby inspiration from, is getting ready for events and from events themselves. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Peter. Any stories you want to add?
I think that's pretty much it. I think we touched on them. So, you know, summary, I think it's a straightforward thing, isn't it? Right. Bring all your gaming peripherals, bring all your models, bring all your books. Make sure you've got the event pack. Bring a good attitude. Accept you're going to lose. Accept that you might awkwardly win as well. Like you might kick someone in the dirt. You might be kicked into the dirt. And just ride it. Go with it. Basically, it's the way to do it. Don't think too much about it, and just get and the more you go to, the more hype you get. The more, I don't know about you, Jay, but for me, my hobby primarily is based around events. Like I'll be like, cool, an event in 6 weeks. Right, I have 2,000 points to paint for this event. Got to get it done. And it spurs me on, and then I'll right, cool. I need another event in 3 months' time to book in. Otherwise, I'm just gonna fall short on the effort for hobby.
Yeah, so use events, guys.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.